Hello and welcome to Star Wars Outpost. Thanks so much for clicking on our video today. We really appreciate a thumbs up as it helps the channel out a lot. Today we're getting into the somewhat complicated topic of Imperial Government and military. Hopefully you find this video to be quite an informative discussion that maybe you'll consider referring back to every now and again for review, because this is not easy information to remember all in one go. Let's start first with the government side of the Empire. The Empire was a dictatorship ruled by Emperor Palpatine. His chief deputy and head of the Imperial Ruling Council was Grand Vizier Mas Amedda. Mas Amedda acted as an intermediary between Emperor Palpatine and everyone else, including Palpatine's advisors and those in the Imperial Court. After the apparent death of Emperor Palpatine, the rule of the Empire by default went to the Grand Vizier, but he was unable to gather enough organized support to pose a real threat to the rebels and the New Republic. The Imperial Ruling Council that the Grand Vizier was head of constituted the uppermost tier of the Empire, and they were for the most part far above the law. They had lots of power over the Empire's daily political and military affairs, and all Moffs, generals, and admirals reported directly to the members of this council. The Empire's legislation consisted of the Imperial Senate, formerly the Republic Galactic Senate, but this was mainly just for looks. The Emperor could change any of the Senate's decisions that he wanted to, without consulting anyone at any time. He eventually disbanded this Senate, and all legislative powers passed directly to regional governors, who were leaders of political territories that included planets, moons, sectors, etc. Now, sector governors were called Moffs. Remember that sectors were sections of the galaxy comprised of multiple solar systems all near each other. By 14 BBY, there was a set number of 20 Moffs and one Grand Moff, which was awarded to Tarkin, who could override any other Moff. Remember, as mentioned before, Moffs were to report to the Imperial Ruling Council, who would then report to the Grand Vizier, who would then report to the Emperor. This upper tier of the Empire all had direct access to the Emperor. They just had to be careful when to use that access, of course. The Moffs and Grand Moff were assigned to sectors that showed signs of unrest and needed extra help in maintaining control and order. So that means that since there were only 20, they were assigned to the 20 most unruly sectors. That being said, they had the authority to deploy armies or fleets, which moves us now into the military side of the Empire. The military was made up of many branches, most notably the Imperial Starfleet, or Navy, and the Imperial Army, or Ground Forces. Leading the Imperial Military was, of course, Emperor Palpatine, his number 2 being Darth Vader. Under them, however, was the Supreme Commander. The Supreme Commander was in charge of creating the agenda and goals of the military in order to fulfill the Emperor's strategies. He was advised by the Joint Chiefs, which was made of an executive group of high-ranking chiefs of the two branches, again, the Starfleet and the Army. In the Army, Grand Generals and Generals served under the Supreme Commander. So whenever you hear General so-and-so, you can be sure this is a discussion about battles on land. Under generals, it was colonels, majors, commanders, lieutenants, sergeants, and finally corporals. The Imperial Navy was also led by Palpatine, his number 2 Darth Vader, then the Supreme Commander, who again is advised by the Joint Chiefs. The member of the Navy who serves on the Joint Chiefs was called the Chief to the Imperial Navy, surprise, surprise. Under the Chief were admirals, commanders, captains, lieutenants, and ensigns, to name the major ones. With all this in mind, a common discussion question is, who's more powerful, Tarkin or Thrawn? After our review today, hopefully you've come to understand that though they don't serve in the same parts of the Empire, namely Tarkin is in the government as a governor, and Thrawn is in the military or navy as an admiral, Tarkin would be more powerful. Why? The military serves the needs of the government. The military keeps the government safe and functioning. Grand Moffs have the authority to deploy fleets and armies that Grand Admirals and Grand Generals would be commanding. So he would be more powerful or have more authority than Grand Admiral Thrawn. So that's just an interesting side note, but one I thought we'd point out. We hope you enjoyed the video today. Who's your favorite Imperial character? Let us know in the comments below. One thing that all these high-ranking officials had in common was that they all wore a rank insignia plaque. We will make a video overview of these Imperial plaques next week, so if you'd like to learn more, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.